Shall we? Sure. All right. Hey, thank you for being here. I know it's a relatively small group, but I'm going to still use the microphone for several reasons. One is there is a lot going on in our building tonight. We have a Northern Colorado Youth Orchestra uses our fellowship hall each Monday night. And boy, it's if you know or have any youth who are in orchestra, it's not something that Zion does, but it's actually a conductor from Loveland High School and Irwin Middle School. They have 3 different orchestras that meet back to back to back in there. Come on in, Sandra. So I'm going to use it for that reason, but also because I had a couple of churches who said they couldn't be here, but they were asking if there was going to be a recording. Now, I don't know if this recording is going to be worth sharing, but just in case, we're going to do it. We're going to try it, and then if it is, then I'll send that to them. So that also said, if any of you have, at any point, if you have questions or want to talk, we would love for you to speak into the mic. Both not so that we're not taken for granted that everybody can hear, but also so that it picks up on that recording. I'm Joel Pancoast. Most likely you're here because you probably got an email or a phone call or something from me. I'm the pastor here at Zion, and I am just really glad that you're here. I've told a couple of people I wasn't sure. I've talked to or passed emails back and forth with quite a few different church representatives, and we weren't sure if we were going to have 5 here or 50 here. But I am not going to talk very long because I think Chris is going to talk most of the time. But I just in a nutshell, our hope, this has been a project that I would say is a long time coming. There were about 3 or 4 churches that started this conversation with Allison Haight out of the community partnering office in the city about probably 4 or 5 years ago, and then that got stopped by guess what? We all say, but and so that did not continue during the pandemic, and then I think I might have it started. At least my first conversation was with Trish Warren, so. Trish is here, and so thank you for your work. And I heard that St. Spiridon was already moving forward with this. And so our hope is to say there are increasingly more and more numbers of people that who are experiencing homelessness, but have vehicles, and so they're staying in them. You've maybe seen them around. And a lot of evidence is showing that actually our cities and our neighborhoods are safer when we do when there are programs like this that give them a safe place to be. But we also know that it's too overwhelming to leave it to St. Spiridon to do. They can't handle it all. Well, maybe you can, but. No. But and so really my hope is, and the team here at Zion was saying, if we could create some kind of a network of churches, maybe even businesses, anybody who has parking lots, that we could over time, this isn't it's a commitment that would hopefully be overwhelming for any of us, that we could be able to sponsor a number of churches that I communicated with were like, why are you even talking to us? We don't have parking lots. Some of us who have parking lots may feel a little overwhelmed we don't know if we have enough volunteers to staff this the way that we want to. And some churches you may not have to staff it very much. But so if you don't have a lot that you think that would work well, that would be conducive to this, that's another option, is to be able to partner some groups together to do that. So thank you for being here. I'm glad you're here. I do know of a number of other churches that might be interested, but who weren't able to be here. So this is really important. It's a great witness of the ways that churches and ministries can at least start this work. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris Finger, who is from St. Spiridon, and I'm going to let him talk because they have a lot more background into how to make this happen. Thanks, Chris, for being here.
Thank you, Pastor, and thank you all for being here. How many of you represent a church here? Okay, so quite a few of you. Thank you. Well, I want to thank Pastor Joel for opening up his church to us. First of all, thank all of you for being here, and wanted to express my gratitude to Deacon Mark Odell, who put together the PowerPoint, and Rachel Cunningham from St. Spiridon, who's worked with us, and Doug Ashbaugh, and myself are the basic people who put together this presentation. So thanks to each of you for your contributions. So, Steve, I think maybe these lights we don't need up front here that light the altar area, and maybe that would make these a little brighter. And so our agenda for tonight is to give you a little bit of background on the process that we went through at St. Spiridon, and what we found. And then we have our work plan, which you should have in the handout that Doug gave you. And if you don't have one, you can raise your hand and Doug will get one to you. There's two. And then Pastor Joel will come back and talk to us about some further steps that we can take. So a little bit of a background. Our parish has had a desire to build an outreach effort to those in need, and that started probably 3 or 4 years ago. And we worked with, we've actually worked with Loveland Community Kitchen for quite a few years, and then Family Promise. And we partnered with them in terms of trying to help families. And then, as we all know, COVID happened, and Family Promise changed their process, and we're no longer housing families in churches. So, and then there were some changes in the plans of the city's approach to the homeless, which dramatically changed in the past year or so. And so we were looking for another option, and we discovered the SafeLot approach and feel that this ministry meshes well with our parish and our goals. And I was just talking with someone here who worked with Family Promise, and I guess they are still housing people in hotels rather than in churches. So this seems like it would be a good fit for us. So we began to look for alternatives, and I think it was back in September of last year, that end of September, that Doug sent me a video on SafeLots. And from there, we kind of took off with that. The next slide should show, actually, our process. Sorry about that. I forgot to turn over the page. We scoured the internet and met with other ministries, and we discovered, as I said, the SafeLot program through Doug, and then contacted them, and have had several conversations with Linda Berenger is the main technical advisor we've spoken to, but Chelsea and others in their group have also been receptive to us, and we've talked with people at the Longmont SafeLot. So we've gathered information and the forms and things that people are using from several different places. We then got together at St. Spiridon and drafted a set of kind of a mission statement and goals, and took that to the priest and then to the parish council. And basically, with their blessing, we formally began a planning process. And that's what we present tonight. So then the next slides will show you I think there's 3 of them. So this is the Colorado Safe Parking Initiative, CSPI. It's their recommended process. And we've also, in the process, attended, Trish Warner organized a meeting in Fort Collins that we went to back in December. And had 2 presenters, one from CSPI and also the new executive director from there came on and spoke with us. And then Hope Longmont, which is operating a lot. Then we've been working with Doug Ashbaugh and Sandra Wright and Allison Haid with the City of Loveland, and in order to work on the approval process. So in this slide here, we're actually working. We're probably on the 3rd step right now of working with the local government, because that's a really important step. We need to, before we can go to our parish council and ask for approval to do this, we have to know that we have the approval of the City of Loveland to do this. So then what we still need to do is number 4 and 5, meeting with local neighbors and deciding how to do that, and coordinating with local service providers. So what we've discovered, a little bit about the client population. And one question that might come up is, do we really need a safe parking lot in Loveland? And CSPI tells us that they get quite a few requests from people from Loveland. And Doug Ashbaugh has been working with people that are living in their cars and knows that there is a need in Loveland to have that. We asked about the demographics, and there are some families, because having come from Family Promise, we were interested in knowing, could we continue to have an effective ministry with homeless people. And there are some families, although they told us that they get the housing first, and so they stay the least amount of time in safe parking lots. There's a high percentage of couples. There's some single women, especially older. And the length of stay, the average is 3 months. About 25% of the people within the first 3 months go into housing. There are some long-term clients. Those are mostly elderly people, many women, and those with disabilities. They seem to have the hardest time getting into housing, and they tend to stay the longest, and they may be there as long as a year. What are the biggest needs that present themselves to a SafeLot startup? They told us that case management for mental health and trauma, it was the hardest thing for new SafeLots to overcome, or to, connect with someone who could do that and to do it effectively. CSPI, I think, actually I think they now have a full-time person doing that, or I don't know if it's part-time or full-time, but they have somebody who goes to some of the lots. We feel that that's something that we can do here, partnering with HNS and Doug, your group of people, and I don't know if you want to say any more about that, but
We can maybe later.
yeah, okay. And the other thing that has provided a challenge for groups trying to open a safe lot has been the zoning process and getting the approval of the local government. And CSPI has been involved in everything from legal steps with people from the law school at Denver University and various processes, but they've been successful in getting approval in almost all situations. I want to address some of the other services that are needed and that present somewhat of a challenge in terms of budget. And the biggest one of those is car repairs. And if you have several spots on your church parking lot and you have cars that aren't operating, that presents a problem. And if the people don't have money and transmission blew up or whatever, and they can't fix it, then how do you help them? And so they recommend that you have a contingency budget of somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000 to deal with various things that might come up, but especially car repairs, which can be expensive. And we've heard stories of many ways that different churches have dealt with this. Some having mechanics within the church who offer their time and help and come out and help somebody fix a car. Others where somebody in the church has a shop and does an in-kind donation to help someone. They've had situations where they've gone and taken somebody to the auction and bought them a car because the one they had couldn't be repaired. So that is a problem that you have to look at in starting this kind of a program. And what kinds of other services other than people being allowed to park their car there? You need to provide them with a restroom, a hand washing station. Showers are always nice. But another thing that a church can do is have a group of volunteers that maybe would do a weekly dinner, maybe 2 nights a week. Maybe if the church has showers, they'll open up the showers, and maybe we can figure out we don't have showers at St. Spiridon, but maybe another church does, and we can work together. Having meals, we give a chance to get to know the people, maybe welcome them into your church community, and play some games, and it could be a good time. Site rules, I was going to mention a little bit about that. CSPI believes that low barrier is the best way to go, because the more barriers that you throw at people, the more people that opt out. But yet, with that, they have very strict rules. And so there's always rules: no weapons, no drugs, keep the lot clean, and can't camp outside of your vehicle, etc. And certainly you'll see in the rest of the documents that each church can set their own parameters, their own rules, and say, this is the limit of what we can accept. So one church may say, well, they accept dogs. Another church may say they don't. Again, the drugs and that kind of thing is always a no. So the major issues that we still have to deal with are getting local buy-in. We haven't figured out quite how to do that yet because we haven't gotten to that point in the process. But you can't surprise your neighbors with this, or you shouldn't anyhow. And how do you let your neighbors know that you're doing this and that it's something that's good for the neighborhood, it's good for the city, it's good for the people who don't have a place to live, and it's a real outreach to them. And we haven't quite figured out yet how we would work with the local police and fire departments and that kind of thing, but those are things that I think are fairly easy at this point to resolve. Another issue that has come up in terms of questions has been legal issues, and we certainly would encourage you to have your legal experts, consult them and have them look at whatever documents you write up. But CSPI says that they have not had problems and have not had legal issue problems. You'll want to discuss with your insurance provider about liability insurance. So if you would take the handout that you have there, maybe I would just go through that quickly with you and give you the layout of the land there. So first of all, we have our mission statement for St. Spiridon and our objectives, and then an overview of the project, in which we don't have a large parking lot, so we're thinking that we could offer 3 designated parking spaces. And we will try to restrict it to seniors who are 60 years or older, or families with minor children that are unable to find suitable housing. And we're looking at being available 6 months out of the year at this point. And then we have the application and approval process, which we're calling this Loveland SafeLot. So Doug is going to be able to process the applications and the background checks, which everyone who comes into a safe lot will have a background check. And then those, and the specifics of that are in this document as to how that interaction would take place. Then we would do partnering with other people in terms of case management. And I think case management becomes really important to try to help the people that are in your safe lot, to help them, whether it's finding jobs or and a lot of them do work and go to work every day. Some of them that are disabled do not. I think the case management is important, and we would make it a requirement that everyone who's in the safe lot would need to have a case manager that they met with and tried to work through the things that would help them to get into permanent housing or a better situation. And then we have also under number 3 is our safe lot security plan and how we would deal with any problems that came up. I think we said we just called Doug. And if there's any incidents, and at the back of this you'll find an incident report and how to define an incident and who needs to take care of that. A lot of well, I should say some of the SafeLots have full-time people that stay there all night. And others hire one of the people that's in the SafeLot to take that responsibility. And they reward them in some way. It's not really a paid position kind of thing in those cases. And we're looking at doing it with a committee of people that would oversee this and then work with volunteers and maybe work with one of the people in the SafeLot. And you would need to ask them to also monitor themselves and see that they, we'd give them a number to call if there was a problem, and then decide how, if that needed to be escalated or how it would be taken care of. Then we have number 4 is volunteer procedures and expectations. And what we would, background checks being required of hosts and so forth. And then we would probably have different groups of volunteers, maybe to take care of things like meals or to help in the management of the SafeLot. And then we have a budget, number 5. We give you some idea of what it might cost. That's an actual quote that we got on a restroom with a sink, and our guesstimate on increased, or is that something that was actually checked, the $300?
It was something that's in our conversation, somebody mentioned that's typically what,
Yeah.
if at all.
Yeah, CSPI has told us that they've seen most of the insurance companies didn't charge anything extra, and some of them charged some minimal amount. And then we're going to have to do something with electrical hookups. That's another thing that you probably need to provide is electricity so they can charge their phones. And so we were just going to put in a 4-plex box with 3 parking spots that people could plug into. And then Appendix A is Loveland SafeLot parking application. And Doug and I have talked about having this available on a simplified form of this on the website. CSPI, the way they work with it is they have a very simple form that somebody fills out, a page or less, and then they have one of their staff members call them and get the rest of the information, so they kind of get to know the person and to be able to ask more in-depth questions. So this is an idea for that kind of a questioning. And then Appendix B is our rules, consent, and release of liability. And we've taken these things from CSPI's model and also SafeLot Loveland, or Hope Loveland, and kind of combined them and put in the things that we felt were necessary. So, and you're welcome, your church is welcome to use any of this, modify it in any way that you wish, and hopefully this might be helpful to someone. So, and then the page 11 is the background check, consent, and then the last page, Appendix C, is SafeLot incident report. So I think that is all of the information that I have. It's our plan at this point is to work, well, moving forward, I think Pastor Joel is going to deal with that, and I think we We'll just open it up now for any questions that you might have. Guess it was clear as mud.
A couple questions about what you're still working on.
Yes.
Do you mind using? Yeah.
What you're still working on, I have a couple.
He's doing that there.
I have a couple of questions on what you're still working on. You mentioned zoning approval.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned approval from the local government.
Mm-hmm. Those are probably one and the same.
Okay.
And I'm going to let Pastor Joel address that.
You want me to say something about that real quick, or do you have more?
I was just going to ask, what does the zoning need to be changed? Or
Yes, there's a nuisance ordinance right now that says basically that you cannot sleep in a car even on private property.
But, I have good news. Just on Thursday, I spoke with Allison Haid, and you probably know this. I spoke with her because I said we're having this meeting, and it would be really helpful for us to know that we're not wasting our time. Are we fighting a bureaucracy that is just going to dig their heels in? And she said, and I wrote this down as a quote, "The city is all for this and wants to work with us. They are in the middle of rewriting the city code to allow overnight parking." And then when I pressed on that, I said, well, surely the city's not just going to suddenly open it up. And they are looking at language. They're not exactly sure what the language will say, but she said it'll possibly say something like parking in community-based sheltering or programs. And so it's not suddenly the code's not gonna suddenly say free for all, you can park anywhere. But that the code will reference something like that if there's a program. And that goes back to what Chris was sharing as far as needing to register also with it. So that would be with a community-based sheltering. Well, it looks like Deacon Mark.
I'll be the,
Oh, okay.
I'll be Van.
I don't think I need a microphone.
Well, they want to record it.
Okay. I kind of wondered if that means that there's discussion to where the Loveland Police might be a little bit better at assistance if there were issues in this program.
I also serve as a police chaplain, and just last week or 2 weeks ago, I had a meeting not about this, but I managed to get a question in with the new chief of police, and they're also all for this. The probably what would happen, I don't want to speak for the police department, but if we have a network and they know that people are staying in a particular lot for a certain night or a week or however we work this out, the police will just have that on their radar and roll through and just check on things. And as far as providing assistance, usually that comes through the police chaplains. So you probably all know our police, like many police, are woefully understaffed right now. And so usually when they run across people who need that kind of assistance, they call it into dispatch, who then call in the chaplains. And that's where we're able to step in. And between us, they also have victim advocates and caseworkers, Salvation Army, all that kind of stuff. A deep network of help and aid. So, yeah, please.
I want to add to that. So all the sheltering that we did at 137 for 14, 15 years, 10 years of that was in heavy partnership with the police department. So I called every night we were open and talked to dispatch, like 15 minutes before we open, because they have shift changes and all kinds of stuff going on. They had maps of every church that we were in. They knew what doors to go in. So this would be similar to that. They will know it's more an ongoing thing, but they'll have all the information that dispatch can just pop up on the screen, and the officers can pop up on the screen. So once we have full buy-in, their system is already built for that, because we did it a long time.
And
I would add too that our plan is we anticipate that once we get this going, that we will have regular conversations with both the police and the fire department, just to keep communication channels as open as we can.
Doug, maybe you can tell them a little bit more about the sheltering that you did, the overnight sheltering, just so they have a picture of that.
So we sheltered adult individuals well, I've been sheltering 17 years. And we sheltered in 8 or 10 churches in rotation. We did a week at a time, and it was only in the winter time. We partner with the churches and let them do what they want to do. So some churches provide a meal. Some churches had showers. It was varying from week to week. And then we had other churches partner to bring in meals. So those 17 years, I think we only missed, 10 meals. And so that shows you a lot about Loveland. So I would say in the future, near future, this gets going, we'll have the same kind of partnership going. So there's tons of opportunity. I think that answered.
That was great, thank you.
Does this mean that our safe?
He's speaking into it, Steve.
I am? Okay. Does this mean that the partnerships, say from Loveland to Denver to here to wherever it goes from here, will be sharing information about bad customers?
Yeah, I would add to that question, I mean, are those folks entered into HMIS and?
Yeah, that's the part we play in the case management. So we do HMIS now and SPDATS for the housing assessment. Been doing that for, I think, 3 or 4 years. So I'm not sure about that sharing, but it's certainly shared within HMIS. So that makes it super confidential, and it's a federal database, but run by the state. So when I'm on, I can tell where a person's been when I'm doing a current living situation, all these things we have to do. I can tell if they're in Denver, Colorado Springs, because you can see the hits. And there's warning that come up on the top of the screen. So we're gonna have to figure out how I can possibly share that with non-HMIS people. So we're I don't know what you call it. We've signed all the documents to be for sharing. So that will be a bridge we cross that we'll probably ask Denver about how they can share that.
So Doug, those kinds of incidences would not reflect on a background check at all?
No, you have to get in heavily into the legal. Yeah.
It's okay. So I have a question. In the event that, most of these people are great, but there may be some that will be somebody you wouldn't want on your lot. If we get into that situation, what type of resources do we have to help us remove those people?
They sign a contract. Well, yeah, we had people sign contracts every night, and I kicked out a lot of people. So I got a lot of history of doing that. And the police will reinforce that.
I think that's where the history comes into play. But they're not going to share the history with us. Yeah, I know, but that's something that has to be worked on.
So you violate rules, then they have chances. And we got to work all this out. Usually, we had a 3-strike rule, and you violate the rule 3 times in a row, and then you have to leave.
And then they go from Longmont to here.
Yeah, that, not sure. We have to work that out. Mhm.
That's shared. And if they don't leave, what resources do we have to enforce that?
Oh, the police.
The police?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, so we partnered with Front Porch, and they had 2 people taken out today by the police. Same thing.
That's part of why I was saying too, that we would have their support. They wouldn't want to give their support to this if they didn't. Thanks. They wouldn't want to give their support. They know if they're saying, yes, we support this, they know of that potential. We even, here at Zion over the year, I've been here for 15 years, and half a dozen or more times we've had people who have stayed, and I usually go out and talk to them. And then I'll call the police and just say, I know they're here. Can you swing through the parking lot? And they actually appreciate me calling and won't kick anybody out unless our neighbors call to complain. But it takes that proactive stance. That's why we're trying to do this proactively so that we can have those conversations and we have them on board with it.
To make a note to ask CSPI sharing information.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
We need to ask that question.
Yeah.
Just to play the devil's advocate a little bit here, I think we all are concerned about the homeless and want to offer ourselves to truly help. One of our concerns in our church, we're just north of here, about 2 blocks, Lutheran Church of Hope, and some of our questions are, what's the core issue? For homelessness, and are we just trying to put a Band-Aid on it, or are we really addressing the core issue that's really going to help? Another question is, what's the city doing about this? It seems to us that, yes, the church is to, help those in need, but this is also, and maybe primarily, a city issue. And what is the city doing to address this? We at our church, we've had a number of bad experiences with this kind of stuff, and we brought this up at our annual meeting here 2 Sundays ago, and it did not go over well. And I'm just being honest. Our people were not in favor of this at all, and we've had a lot of issues over the years with vandalism, arson. Some of our people have been threatened. And the list goes on. And we have a good relationship with the police department. We've had them over a few times to discuss, help us come up with plans of security, and that type of thing. But our reality is, pre-COVID, when we were going through a real bout of vandalism, we would call the police department every time, right when it was going on, and never once was someone sent. And the last, I'll just leave that there. And I personally take the opportunity to talk with law enforcement officers whenever I can. And the last time was about a month ago, a female law officer, and I was asked, how's the morale, in the police department? And they're very open, honest about that. And the gal I was talking to was working a double shift and said that they are so understaffed. And so I was just sharing about some of our experiences, and she told me that, yeah, it's because they're so understaffed, it's a priority. And, you know, if it's not a high priority on their part as they deem it, they're not going to come. And that's been our experience. And I'm just wondering too about, you know, that we talk about background checks. I think that's a good idea. To me, it's a question of what is checked, who's doing the background check, those kinds of things, and you know, how is all that going to be enforced and policed, and with safety and security? So those are, another question would be, you know, the legality of it all. And not in terms of offering our lots for safe space, but with the application, what's going to happen if it's discovered that somebody wants to come in and they're illegal? What do we do with that? I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I think it might be helpful, Doug, if you could give a little bit of a synopsis of the different kinds of homeless people that are out there at this time, and why this group that we would have in SafeLots would be at a different level, say, than the people who the city just, you know, disbanded the encampments and so forth. Could you address that a little?
A little, I guess. This program, to get off the ground, for sure, the assessment to get in is a little steeper than most everything else that goes on. I mean, just having your car in everything legal on it is a big milestone. We're running into a lot of homeless in cars, and you know, they're nowhere near that. So our mobile unit is working with them as we speak to try to get them to move forward with and make that progress to get legal. So when I say that clears out a lot of the problems, if I can say it that way. And we work with them daily. So I can't say that the people coming into the SafeLots will know them all, like we know a lot of the street homeless. But over time, I would think that we will get to know them. And it's not really answering the question. It's tough.
Well, I think that a lot of these, I guess one distinction I would make is that the people that are going into SafeLots in general are looking to improve their situation. They're looking to work. I think they said over 50% of them have jobs, and they go out every day and work and come back. So there are people who have fallen on bad times. You know, I think of a situation where someone my age or younger, a couple that are on Social Security and maybe making it with two people on Social Security at whatever, $800 or $1,000 each a month, and one of them dies, and now that all of a sudden puts the one person down to having $800 or $1,000 a month, and you can't live on that. And so they find themselves in a position where they sell everything they have and move into their car. And so I think that's a different caliber of person in terms of their desires. They're anxious to get out of this situation and are looking for help to do that. And you asked about monitoring, and I think that if you read through some of our documents, and I didn't want to spend too much time going through all of those things, but we've addressed several of the things that you've brought up. I mean, that the lots would be monitored by our committee someone from our committee every night or at least once a week. And some, as I said, some safe lots have someone that's there all the time. And so they're not going to allow somebody in who doesn't belong there. And part of what people sign is that they won't reveal where the lot is or, invite friends to come over. That's not allowed. So it's just for that person. Yes.
Just a comment. I also attended the meeting in Fort Collins, and I was very encouraged by what the Colorado Safe Parking Initiative people had to say about the safety of the lots. So I wish that people understood what I felt like I learned from that meeting, which is why the parking lot is safer when we have it as a safe parking lot than it would be if we didn't have this program. And so the Safe Parking Initiative people have data from all over Colorado, and their data is pretty impressive on crime decrease in the area where the safe parking lot program has been established. And then we saw the same thing in the experience in Longmont, which is probably quite similar to what Loveland would be doing. And the reasoning that I think I heard at that meeting was not only what you are saying about the more careful screening of people who do participate in the lot, but also the fact that the people who are in the lot are appreciative of the fact that the lot is providing them safety, and the fact that people are in the lot who value it because they would not be safe or they would not feel safe in other places. And so the experience that has proven out through this crime statistics, I think, is very encouraging as far as what I would say to the neighbors should we do it here at Zion.
Thank you for that helpful answer. And yes, I confess we are just looking at getting into this and don't have experience to relate. And the people from Colorado Safe Parking Initiative certainly know a lot more than we do and could give you better answers to your questions.
Yeah, kind of back to yours. I think you're asking for safety for sure. And how do you do that when you assess a person? Well, in this model, it's going to be a little tougher. And the model we've always done with running the day center, we get to know them. And that was my assessment for putting people into my house, for referring people, because I knew them for a year or two, long before I would ever do that. So, someone calling up on the phone wanting to get on the lot, fill out an application. Well, I'm hoping, which is a terrible thing, but I'm hoping for a waiting list. Because eventually, in that waiting list, Harvest Farm has a fascinating way of assessing, at least they used to. They take phone calls only from the client. You cannot call on their behalf. And they log the amount of times that person, the desperateness, and how consistent they call and call and call. And that's used to be one of their assessment tools. So it's a great tool. Relationship in my eyes is the biggest tool. And so I say a waiting list because our mobile unit will spend time with them. If they won't spend time with us, that's a warning sign. That's my take on it. So we're all about relationship, the way we do things, and that's the best place to actually help people, is in relationship and building dignity. So.
And I would add that, where HNS and Doug would do background checks before they even referred a client to one of the safe lots, but then each church would have their own set of criteria and would have the right to say, no, I don't want that person, or yes, I accept him. And you would meet with them personally first, and before you made that decision.
I did appreciate the question about how does this program fit into the overall program that we're doing throughout the city, and I would like to say throughout the county, because I do appreciate what people are saying about the possibility of coming from Longmont and bouncing. My main question, though, is what is your minimum age? If we have young people that are unrelated, 18, emancipated 16, I know at some point we'll have a youth center up and running, but at this point in time, I'm 18 years old, runaway, I'm working McDonald's, I have an unrelated friend in the car with me.
So that would not meet the criteria for St. Spiridon, but some other church might decide that that's okay.
How do you prove that a person is of age is 18 rather than 17?
I would assume on the background check.
Yeah.
They're going to have to prove a driver's license, or they can't get on. So if the state makes a mistake, then they could slip through.
And I've got a fake driver's license now.
Yeah, that's very true.
I'm more concerned about the young.
Yeah. So that's kind of why we're doing this meeting tonight, because Chris landed at 137 as a volunteer and was going, hey, we need to get re-engaged. So it's in this partnership that this all came about. And they're really leading the charge as a church. And I hope a lot of other churches get involved and jump on. And as a community, we're going to lead this program forward, not just one entity. So they'll all take on the kind of demographics that they're comfortable with. Senior congregations, typically we'll go with seniors. There's a lot of churches that have a bunch of young people. So hopefully in the partnerships, we'll meet all those gaps.
But again, that coordination overall through one spot, I think is maybe.
Yeah, and that would be the Loveland SafeLot.
Which is us.
Right.
H&S.
Okay, that's.
Yeah, we're formerly 137. We're coming out with a new name. Probably won't bring that up tonight. But the Loveland Safe Lot will be a program underneath that new name. So, yeah, a lot of changes.
I think the question was raised about liability insurance, and I imagine that you might want to speak to that in terms of whether you've checked that out with your insurance carrier. All churches have insurance, and it's probably a good idea to have that checked out. And just one other thing I want to say, that as a citizen, I am very impressed with how Allison Haid and our city has responded to this huge, huge problem of homelessness and its many, many facets. I mean, they really agonized over what do we do with the people who are living along the river? And they have tried to take, I think, humane steps toward helping folks in that situation. They gave land for the St. Valentine's Project. Allison is dedicated to helping these folks. I think some of the folks on the council are too. But you might want to speak to the insurance issue. I'm pretty sure it's covered.
Yes, I can only tell you that we've asked that question of CSPI, and that was their response, is that most of the safe lots that have started have approached their insurance people, and they've just said, well, we'll add that to the policy that you have a safe lot operating in your parking lot, and that there's no extra charge for it, or maybe there was some minimal charge. But I think the most that they heard of was something like $200 or $300 a year.
I
And
can
that's,
speak.
that's something on our next steps, and we intend to do that.
Yes.
And, several of the other things that we haven't gotten to yet.
I know here at Zion, our insurance would not be affected by it. We've had this conversation about this, about other initiatives that and as long as it is an official part of our church's ministry, it is covered by our insurance. We would not have to take out another rider or anything like that. It is part of our ministry, and so they insure it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm quite sure that's true, having spoke with our insurance agent many times on these things. I think more or less what I was hearing here was some of what I was trying to state. When you are a downtown church or so close to the straight-through thoroughfare, in setting up, whether it's 3 or it's 4 or it's 5 vehicles to camp, when you've spent so long to try to make sure that damages to your church are contained, kind of taken care of, that so many times downtown, when I see a vehicle or 2 vehicles camp illegally in a spot, and then they kind of take that over before they're ran off, that the local homeless population joins them. And maybe that's the fear that he has, is looking for some input on what may have happened in other areas with downtown churches when they've created a safe park, whether they have trouble trying to keep it just a safe park. Because, yes, the population tends to try to search those advantages out and then join them.
That's very true. You're going to be signing a contract to be on this safe lot. And if you don't have a contract, you're trespassing. Pretty simple. And so that's what SafeLots is doing, and it really successful. So
I guess what I was more or less, I'm understanding.
sure.
I guess I was more or less looking for input where in other areas, whether that's Denver or Longmont or wherever this may already be in existence and going, what their experiences may have been with this.
As far as we know, there are 13 safe lots in the Denver, Metro Denver area, including Longmont. There's none in Loveland or Fort Collins. And so there are 13 lots, and the experience of those lots has been that they have not had these kinds of problems policing it. I mean, if somebody violates the rules, they're asked to leave. And that's in the contract that they sign with the church, with the safe lot.
Yeah, in my experience, the people on the lot, the majority of them, this is going to be such a relief to them. They're going to be desperate, and they're going to, probably too far, they're going to covet this lot. And they're going to not want people to disrupt it. So there'll be some education to begin with, but it'll form some kind of ownership, some kind of pride that they've made it to this level. And I swear, I think that's why Denver is being successful, is the people want to keep it safe. So they'll instantly call. I mean, they'll be in their car and they're going to hide. They're not going to do anything, which they shouldn't, but the security team's going to know about it. And we have quite a bit of this going on right now, so at the front porch. So it's just built in. And I think that will work itself out in really short order. So they're going to protect their lot.
Yeah, I'm not trying to sideline, I'm just trying to.
Sure, sure.
All the information I can, because being one of just a few people from your congregation, all the questions will come.
Oh, definitely, absolutely. And the more we, yeah, and the more we can give you, the better. So we want to give you ammo. So,
Yeah, and I would say to anyone, there's a lot of the information in the documents you have, and please read them and feel
Yeah,
free to
definitely.
call myself or Doug with any questions that you have. And if we don't know the answer, we'll try to go to Colorado Safe Lots and get the answer for you.
Doug, two questions. I heard you say that Loveland Safe Park is under the auspices of HNS. So then are you a committee of one doing all of the background checks and the applications, or are there more staff of HNS coming alongside of you, or who exactly is doing the applications and the background checks?
so right now, there's 3 of us.
3 of you. And those are volunteers or
With
employees
staff.
of
Staff,
HNS?
yeah.
Okay. And then second question, thank you. The mobile unit that you're talking about, is that the mobile unit that the city employs from front porch? So it's you and a police officer and Francine, or is it?
No, when we left 137, the location, we were trying to figure out what we would do to stay connected with all the people we know. And so instantly, we just said, we're going mobile. So the 3 staff I had down there to run 137 are now, well, it's a new name that we're working on. We go by the name MASH, and it's Mobile Assistance Serving Homeless. So it is Francine, Carrie, and me. Yeah.
Right, that's okay.
Yeah. So, and each person has a unique role to play, I think. And Francine is going to be mainly MASH, and Carrie will be mainly SafeLots, and I'll be everything and just overseeing. So, as the lots fill up, we'll be doing case management, but the rest of the day we're going out to the cars and people in cars and probably front porch, and we're going to be working on like what we're doing right now, just trying to move them forward. And we have 3 people in cars right now that totally different situations, and we are talking to them weekly about their progress and moving forward to get legal, some health issues. And so we partner with Summastone, Northern Colorado Health Alliance. We refer to the clinic. We refer to LRC, which then is Homeward Alliance, which is then Navigators for IDs, all kinds of stuff. So we have a lot of partners, and that comes along with it. So that's everything that we'll be doing with the people in cars. One new thing that will increase heavily, I'm suspecting, is our partnership with the Housing Authority. We don't do a lot with them now. It's pretty much through the SPDAT and the continuum of care, but a lot of these seniors that we're running into are going to need senior living, and they're going to need to get on those waiting lists to get into a senior place. So that is kind of outside of the continuum of care, as I see it now. So,
You know, I think we're all here because we truly want to help.
yeah.
But I think you're hearing some skepticism and concern in the questions. You said you had 13 other safe lots already currently?
Yes.
No, that's in Denver.
Okay, how many in Denver? 13?
13.
Are there any more in northern Colorado, Fort Collins, or? Okay.
Just one in Longmont.
Would you be willing to provide us a list of people that are running safe lots that we can call and see what kind of concerns, what kind of responses, what kind of problems they've been having? I think it would go a long way if we could actually talk to people that have been running a safe lot to, circumvent some of our concerns.
I can certainly talk to the people at Colorado Safe Parking Initiative and see if they would release a list like that. And
I'm not talking about the initiative itself. I'm talking about churches.
right, most of the safe lots that exist right now, the 13 that are in the Denver area, there are some in Aurora, Golden, Littleton, et cetera. They're all kind of under Colorado Safe Parking Initiative. And so the one in Longmont, Hope Longmont, is a separate organization not under CSPI. We would be a separate organization not under CSPI. They don't have the funding to provide, for instance, like case management and background checks and all of that kind of thing. They could, they're willing to support us and help us to get going, but could not provide those kinds of services on the budgets, the funding that they have. But so most of the others are under them.
And our team here, a couple of people on our team here at Zion had talked about going down to the Hope program in Longmont. So that's something, whether you want to do that all individually or if we want to have, have several from different churches go down there and talk to them, that could be, I think, very edifying for us to ask some of these difficult questions for people who are actually running it right now.
So we need CSBI will release that list of churches.
Right. And I think that might be a future meeting, is that we can have you submit questions and have people from CSPI and Hope Longmont. I mean, you had them at your meeting in Fort Collins. And they're very willing. Yeah. Yeah, and we could have them here and on a Zoom call.
That's what I was going to say.
All right.
Amen.
So just a question from a city standpoint. I don't know about the other churches, but we have had experience where occasionally active drug users do get through the system. And when you're a church that's located across the street from a school, I would really like to know from the city standpoint, at what foot level, what yardage do we need to be apart? And is that a case where that church might need to be a support church and not an actual safe lot church? And again, we're right by public park too, where they don't want overnight parking. So I'd just like some clarification for that.
I think Deacon Mark is jotting down these questions. What did we forget to tell these people, Deacon Mark?
What did we? I've got several questions, and let me go through them and make sure that we've got them all documented. The first one was sharing both the good and the bad characters between communities, Loveland, Longmont, and Denver. There's a question about enforcement, and again, we can check with the police about their engagement, their level of engagement that they expect to have. There's questions about the background checks that we can provide more information on. And several questions, again, maybe would be best through another meeting with a CSPI here, but we can nonetheless ask the questions and get the information back to you. Safe Lot, do they bring homelessness? We don't, from what we've heard from CSPI, that's not the case, but we can ask specifically that question. Request whether or not CSPI would provide the names of churches so that they can be individually contacted. And the question in terms of does the police have some recommendations in terms of this program relative to the closeness of community structures like schools. Did I miss anything?
I do have a general question. I would be interested to know which churches are represented here tonight. If we could find out, you know,
That's great. Could you
Thank you.
could you tell us what church you're representing?
I'm from Zion.
You're Zion. And you're from Zion, Liesel. And sir? Yes.
We are together. We don't tell them. We don't. What's the point you like to say? I don't admit it.
So we're from
It's
Spirit of. I'm sorry?
Lutheran Church of Hope. Any other churches?
I'm sorry?
I kind of really expected to see more.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly, I did too. I thought but I've had, I think 3 other churches not represented here who have asked, and I have to go back and look at all my emails, asking really good questions, showing interest. And one of them, I know you've already talked to Foundations a little bit, right?
Yeah, it is
Grace Community. They have not emailed me. But
Yeah, but I'm in contact with them.
Great. Okay.
Foundation ends up with people there automatically.
What's that?
I said Foundations has frequently had people there just automatically.
Right.
Because of
Yeah, we
the
have to deal with
Yeah.
Trinity, also Trinity Lutheran in Loveland, they are interested. First Pres is interested but doesn't have a parking lot, so they're one of the ones that would be willing to send volunteers to another lot.
Have you questioned businesses that
Actually do have parking lots, you know, where over the years, the most famous one would have been like Walmart's, on the ability of a group drawing together to help manage and run something like this, to have a portion of their parking lot, which I thought at one time they did away with camping in their parking lot, but it looks like it's kind of reappearing.
It's actually not true. There's still signs up prohibiting.
People just take advantage of it. Yeah, okay.
And that's another question. Walmart is obviously, there's a city ordinance. I would assume there's a city ordinance preventing people like me. I mean, when I travel, I pull my camper into a Walmart parking lot. But Walmart here has got signs up, and I'm assuming that's a city ordinance, preventing that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so how would this fit with that?
I think the wording that Pastor Joel gave would cover that, but go ahead and address that, please.
That was the question. Like I said, I asked Allison Haid from the city of Loveland on Thursday, and she said the council is already anticipating this, the city council, and they're working on changing that. And she said, you just have to be patient. This takes a long time. And I'm thinking, city government, we're talking about a year. Like, well, what's a long time? She said, it's going to take at least 2 months. I'm like, oh, we're not. It's going to take more than 2 months to get a few churches on board. So, you know, but they're working on that wording that it would be. They're not going to take away the prohibition of public camping. They're going to allow parking overnight in sponsored lots. So people still would have to be registered. They're not just going to be able to park wherever they want. They have to be registered with a program, have a background check, have a case manager, all that kind of stuff.
Chris, you might want to just mention too, difference between a car and a camper or an RV.
Yeah, I think that each church would be able to make that distinction for themselves. We could not handle campers. And I also want to give an opportunity. Sandra Wright is here from Homeward Alliance, and Cherry is here from HNS. And if either of you have additional things that you could say, words of encouragement or discouragement or whatever, we'd be happy to hear that.
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to say thanks to Doug and Carrie and Francine and Sandra and Allison. There's just a lot of people that put a lot of energy into helping others. And this is a team that does that. So, and we are, HNS is, we are open to, and actually excited about the possibility of this. My desire, I tell the team, hey, let's take it small. Let's try this, let's test it. We know that it's worked down in Denver, so it could work here. And there will be a lot of issues. There will be a lot of problems. There will be things that we encounter that we didn't foresee. But that's why we're together, you know. And we have caring hearts, and we have wisdom, and we have God. So I feel like that there's hope for the future. This team has been meeting together, and they're smart people, and so let's keep going forward. We feel good about it, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for those words.
I do want to thank everyone for being here and for interest and your concerns and kind of excitement about this too. There are a lot of different reasons why people may be experiencing homelessness, and the Safe Park program, as has been described here and as the Colorado State Park Initiative is, they are focused. Well, Chris is correct in mentioning that it's low barrier. It's actually a high barrier to get into the program. And then as the program operates, it's very similar to how the Loveland Resource Center operates. There's no drugs allowed, no weapons, that sort of thing. We can't control what people do when they're not on property, but there are actions and consequences, if you will, just as there are in other programs here in Loveland. So the fact that the Colorado Safe Park Initiative has the background check, has that your vehicle has to be registered and current licensings, the drivers have to be have their documentation in order, that already removes some of the maybe angst that or anxiety, right, that could be caused by this. So that already removes some of that. And so I would also like us to understand that while in our, sometimes it's easy to say that there are different levels of homelessness, different acuities. Like some people have high barriers, but I can guarantee you that a lot of those high barriers started out with low barriers, just as people living in their cars. And it is really easy for us to cast judgment, but if we don't help people in a timely manner, I would even say that I would be in that same situation as years go by. So if we could just all remember that too.
Thank you so much, Sandra.
With the registration process, I don't know if there's been any thought to, but a suggestion, in case it hasn't been thought of, would be to be visiting with local law enforcement about that, to see about their involvement. Years ago, when I was serving out in western North Dakota, that's what we had. The churches had an arrangement with the sheriff's department, and if anybody, the sheriff's department kept the database. And if anyone came into the churches, what we were strongly encouraged to do is get name and then call it into the sheriff's department. And, you know, they would do the background check. In fact, they just kept a database. They could tell us right away if the person was on the run or what. And it was a great asset to the churches. And it eliminated a lot of concern. If somebody was on the run and you told them, well, we're required by law enforcement to give them their name, they were out the door. If there was something shady going on, and it was a real help. So, if the safe parking lot thing moves forward, that would be a suggestion I would have, unless it's already been thought of and worked on. So.
I also know that in conversations that we've had, I know that HNS is working on what that capacity is as far as their case management load. So the average number of a caseload for our case managers between 12 and 20 individuals, depending on what the various needs are. And so HNS is working on figuring out what that is and continuing as they're looking at their other programs as well, making sure that they can support that. Because what we don't want to do is have this explode, if you will, and not be able to support the individuals and to make sure that they are being entered into the HMIS system, which we're so thankful that just in the past 6 months, Loveland is now a part of that HMIS system where it wasn't before. And so having that in mind, HNS is working on that. And so that there are some limits around this, and this is being grown in a way that makes sense. And then, of course, funding for those case managers, as well as funding for, I know that there's the contingency budget, but if there are needs for car registration or what have you, those funds have to be there in order to qualify for this program, and it will take money to do that.
I would just like to encourage any of you that have an interest in this to maybe visit with myself or Pastor Joel, and so that we can take some next steps as we go forward. We realize we don't have all of the questions answered. And part of that is, at least from my perspective, is you put a lot of energy into getting something going, and you don't want to get so far down the road and then be told, well, sorry, it's not going to work. So we wanted to make sure we had the support of the city, and I was very enthused and delighted to hear your report from Allison Haid. And so having the support of the city to do this and their backing, then we can move forward and get to some of the finer points that many of you have mentioned. So if you would like to contribute to that by meeting with us again and maybe sitting down with a smaller group of people and trying to work through some of those things, I would encourage you to leave us with your name and your desire. And I thank you all for coming. If there's no other questions, I'm sure you have other things to get on with in your evening, and appreciate you being here. Is there anything else you'd like to mention, Pastor Joel?
No, I don't think so. I'd get the mic just to say that. But no, thank you. Thanks to St. Spiridon, because they've been doing a lot of this work already. So I really appreciate Chris, you and Deacon Mark being here and sharing your work. Like I said before at the beginning, Trish, that you got us started in some of this conversation. So thank you. And I'm still going to be sharing the word with other churches and other pastors. I meet with 2 different clergy groups, and we'll be. We're not done. So, but we would hopefully, you have enough questions you can take back to your congregations. If you are still interested, we'll look at organizing another conversation if it's something that you're interested in as we move forward. So let us know.
I think you should just organize another conversation and let us know when that is to see how.
Great. Okay. We'll organize another conversation for sure. Absolutely. Yes, that's
right.
And maybe have CSPI come, maybe some of the people might
Yep.
be able to come as well, or at least call some interaction.
And as was mentioned, there was a conversation up in Fort Collins, and I know Linda mentioned she was there. There were a few people from Loveland there, and at least from some people here, the sense was, this is great. There's strength in numbers, but each community has such different issues. We really have to address those issues with our different city councils and police and things like that. It just wasn't going to work. In my opinion, and I wasn't able to be at that meeting, but from some of the people who went there, that we had to start talking here in Loveland of what that's going to look like. More detailed.
Go ahead, Trish.
Close to being launched, I hope, at CSU. Their off-campus life team is, CSU is creating a lot for their staff and students because they have staff and students living in cars. So they're trying to create a lot. Lindsay Mason is in charge of that, and she was close, I think, to getting the go-ahead for that. So that's going to be another example that we have to watch. But Fort Collins is also very interested in starting up, and so is the county. The Larimer County Commissioners are looking at this as one of their strategies moving forward. So it's got the energy behind it, and the timing is good.
Yeah, I would add, I think there was a lot of energy from the people from CSU, and I was amazed at the statistics that they gave about how many students are living in cars. So, well, thank you again for coming, and let us know your desires, and we have email and phones, and sometimes I can even text message. Thank you.